Hello and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for everyone. Welcome to the third episode of Discover Hospitality, a series where we discover the hidden jobs and careers in the hospitality industry and share career advice for students, graduates, and those of us with a few years of experience, and anyone else in the hospitality industry. I'm your host, Maria Malaniia. I am a hospitality graduate, a guest experience and hospitality brand specialist, and a founder of Savvy Hotelier, a place for hospitality students to ask questions, find resources for their studies, and beyond. So the reason I started Savvy Hotelier and this webinar series with WHTT is because I'm so passionate about uncovering those hidden parts of the industry. I want to really show what's possible for each and every one of us in hospitality and building our careers. This series covers all sorts of topics. We're talking about events, tourism, entrepreneurship, wine, hotels, and much more. So make sure you follow WHTT and Savvy Hotelier. Don't miss the upcoming themed event every Thursday here live on WHTT's LinkedIn page. So today's event is all about events. And with me today, I have three amazing panelists to help us discover what is possible within the events industry and what is happening in the sector because of the pandemic. And we'll give you lots of ideas for career opportunities and, how to figure out what's your next steps. So pop your questions in the chat. Make sure to, you can ask them all throughout. We will make sure to address them during the panel, not just at the end, and want to make you as the most useful conversation as possible. So without further ado, thank you for all the panelists for contributing their time for volunteering today. And let me do a brief introduction. First up, we've got Stephan. From a Swiss hospitality graduate, he began his career in hotels and quickly found his way in the sales department. So now Stephan is a senior regional business development executive at Cvent, the industry-leading meeting events and industry technology provider. So thank you so much. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Brilliant. Next up, we have Samantha, Salisbury, an event planner who's probably done every single event type, I think, in existence. We've got corporate events, weddings, you've got, working for Amex and all sorts of conferences. So, but apart from organizing events, she also teaches career event management at Hallmark University and coaches others in their careers and events. So it's fantastic to have you with us, Samantha.
Thank you so much for asking me.
Brilliant. And final guest, Charlie Mussett. He's held a number of different roles in the industry, a variety of sectors as well. We're talking about festivals, sports, charity events, and is now a consultant in operations and specializes in safety, including covering COVID risk assessments. So, he's the one that's going to tell us how to run COVID safe events. So better ask him that question. And yes, thank you for coming, Charlie.
Glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Thank you again for volunteering this time, for taking part in this panel. And I want to kick this off by asking each and one of you to kind of share your stories, because I think it's so interesting to hear how people come to where they are and how to make career decisions in their life. And I want to start off with Charlie here as well. Can you tell us, how did you get started? What are you doing now? And could you have ever predicted where you would be now at the start of your career?
Well, if any of us could have predicted 2020, I think the world might be a slightly different place. But I started off, I got into events because when I was at university, I liked organising them. I went to university at a time when event management degrees didn't exist, and event management as a profession was perhaps more linked to the world of PR and marketing than pure events. But I liked organising balls and tours and things, my rugby club, and then I got into events through that. So I started out working on the tall ships race, and the public event side. So that would be kind of like open air festival stuff. So we'd be doing 3-day sites, 250,000 people coming through it, fireworks, stages, catering. And then from that, I then took a move into organised sport, working for the Great Run Company, and spent 20 years with them, organising the Great North Run, the world's largest half marathon, and events down the land, a few events overseas. Largely operations, but also a lot of safety as well. And then, like a lot of people affected by COVID, I was made redundant in October. So I've moved out as a freelancer and working as a consultant. I'm working for some sports and other events at the moment, do some feasibility studies and a bit of prep work, but also a bit of a sideline, moved into TV TV, doing TV production, health and safety, and COVID safety. So that's where I am now.
Oh, that's a hell of a journey. It's honestly, just starting from a hobby, right? And then really getting into it and enjoying it, and then building a whole career out of it.
Well, I think that for a lot of us, that passion for events is what got us into it and got moving on. And it's what keeps us in it, even in times. And we know that there's plenty of colleagues, plenty of suppliers, plenty of our partners now in the industry are really suffering. We're still not back at work. There's a bit of work for some of us to do, but we're nothing like full speed, full strength, any of us. We know that. But that's why so many of us are doing our best to hang on. We know that people will want the experience. They'll want to come back. We know we'll have a vibrant market, and we know that, again, in time, there will be jobs and positions to move into, because these are the experiences that people want and need in their lives.
Brilliantly put, and I do certainly hope that we will see that sooner rather than later.
Me too.
Fantastic. Samantha, you've obviously had all these different roles, from weddings to corporates to Amex. Can you summarize your journey for us, and how did you kind of decide that being career coach in the event sector was your thing?
So I started doing events back when I was at sixth form, organising charity balls and fundraising events. Then went to university and ended up doing a Spanish and Latin American studies degree. Really didn't do much event work during that time, but I did in my final year do a stint with Oxfam, helping them do some of their events with some of their volunteers. And that's when I realised really that I wanted to go into events. So after uni, I got a job at Wembley Event Management Services back at the old Wembley Stadium before it was knocked down. That's where I first started. And then went on to work in lots of different roles. I've been in the industry now for 20 years, over 20 years, 22 years now, I think it is. I've worked kind of on the corporate agency side for American Express. I've done commercial conferences in the Far East and in Europe for a commercial conference company. I went and spent some time living and working in Sydney, where I was really working for the public sector, doing events for them. Came back to the UK and set up my own business in 2005, 2006. I was acting as a wedding planner for large multicultural weddings. I was also doing lots of work for the University of Cambridge, doing academic conferences as well for them. And then that changed. I stopped doing weddings. I had my daughter and started then moving into teaching. I applied for a role as tutor for MA in Creative Events Management. I've been doing that ever since. And I've spent a bit of time working at a wedding venue in Cambridge. Throughout all of this, my love was always events, working on different types of events, different events, outdoor events, indoor events, conferences, family fun days. That's where my love and my passion is. It's always actually, organising those events. And then last year, I set up my Facebook group, Get Ahead in Events. I really felt that there was, a lack of help and support for those who were either at the start of their events career. Some had been, studying event management at university and were getting the support from the universities, but others really didn't have that support. And then there were those also further on in their careers who wanted to make that next step or move to a different sector. And that's why I decided then to set up my membership, the Events Career Club, to help all of those people. I really felt that was missing last year, at the beginning of last year. Since then, lots more things have come out. There's like mentoring schemes and all sorts now out there for people, and lots more organisations, LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups to help everyone, which is fantastic to see. So that's how my journey evolved.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point in terms of opportunity. Like when you see that there's some things missing and you want to help, it's oftentimes just, go and do it yourself. Because I also noticed something last year that a lot of us in hospitality events kind of just popped out, and like all of a sudden we have brilliant networks and connections, and we can connect more better than before. I found that it was difficult to find, and we are now connected, even though just digitally.
And also, there's a huge community out there. And I think normally when we're so busy organising events, you don't see those people. You're too busy actually running the events.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. And okay, Stephan, can you tell us your story about graduating, studying hospitality, finding out about sales, and building your successful career in one of the biggest companies?
Yeah, it's a funny one. And in fact, similar to you, I'm a hospitality graduate. I studied in Switzerland. And even before that, I worked in catering companies. And I always felt I had sort of that sense of selling in a way. Like I always, when I was working in F&B, I always tried to sell people things that they didn't think they needed. And I sort of got satisfaction out of that. Didn't know that that was leading to a sales career at some point. Now, by the way, I don't sell things I don't think people need, just so I'm a proper salesperson. But I went then to hospitality school, and when I was studying in hospitality school, it's always very focused on sort of F&B and rooms division, F&B and rooms division. And I kind of knew this wasn't my thing. And then at some point, I remember we had an F&B class, and then one of the teachers was like, "Oh yeah, and then sometimes you will have these salespeople that come in the restaurant with their customers, and they think they own the place, and da da da." And I was like, "Hold on, you're telling me if I work in sales, part of my job will be eating at the restaurant with customers?" And he's like, "Yeah, and they're arrogant, and da da." And it's like, I want to do that. So it's really hard though to go from school to work in sales directly. So I did a bit of F&B. Sorry, I did a rooms division. I moved to Dubai and I did rooms division and management training. And again, I liked the upselling part and everything, but I felt like that's not me. And then I took my first sales job with the Ritz-Carlton in Dubai. Worked for many years at the Ritz-Carlton in Dubai in sales, built my way up from a sales coordinator, executive, manager and everything. And then did a very weird move. I joined a textile company selling textiles to hotels. Wasn't entirely my cup of tea, I have to admit. It was a very money-driven decision, which though I'm not ashamed of, because I learned a very important lesson that if you work in sales, and this is something I want to tell everyone who's on here, try and work with a company that sells something that you are passionate about. And money isn't everything in life. I think most people who work in the hospitality industry, they've realized that money isn't the reason why we do this. But it was a good decision. Yeah, then I ended up in Cvent. That was when I was working at the Ritz-Carlton. We used to be a customer of Cvent, and that's how my connection to Cvent started. And at some point, they asked me whether I'd be interested to move to London and work in the London office. And now it's been almost 4 years that I've been doing that.
Amazing. Yeah, that's a great story as well of finding the things that you want to do, and even if it is described to you as arrogant salespeople, that if that's what you want to do, and of course not being an arrogant guy, so yeah, that sounds great.
I was like, screw the arrogant part. I want to eat for free.
Well, yeah, you have to go to lots of events though, and you have to do lots of wine and dine, which can be a bit much.
I have to. It's funny that you mentioned it, but it's exactly this. I mean, you have a target. We had to have dinner or lunch 3 times a week with customers. Fantastic restaurants, of course, but it's not as great as it sounds having to sit, because you do your normal day shift and then you have dinner with a customer in a restaurant, and not every person is as interesting as you might believe. So having to sit with somebody for 2 hours, listening to their story and their kids and all of that, and you're like, oh, it's not all as nice.
But yeah, that comes in the relationship building and learning how to have those conversations, whether you enjoy them or not. That's part of the job, isn't it?
It's very. I will say this: mostly they were obviously nice and pleasant people, but it's not as easy as it seems. That's basically the message I want to convey.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say the same thing about being an event manager. It seems easy, like you just organize an event, and you probably know organizing Christmas once a year or Thanksgiving or whatever you are in the world is still quite stressful. And imagine that these are not your family members, and these are clients who have paying you money to do it. It is still a lot of work, and you want to get a lot of stuff, right. Well, pretty much everything, hopefully. But here's the first question for Samantha though. When it comes to entering the events industry, oftentimes it's easy to imagine, oh, I can be an events manager. That's pretty much the first thing you think to. And then in terms of career growth, you probably think, oh, I'll just go to bigger, titles, bigger scales, and I don't know, from hotel to convention centers or bigger hotels and so on. But what else is there? What kind of roles are there within the events other than being an event manager?
So yeah, there's so many different opportunities and roles out there. So obviously there's the traditional ones like working in an agency or a venue like a hotel or a conference centre, but then there's so many others as well. So roles covering tech, AV, videography, project management, social media management, conference producer where you're actually writing the content for conferences, marketing, so that could be digital marketing, online marketing, newsletter marketing, all sorts of different types of marketing campaigns, being an account manager where you're managing a client relationship and then helping them organize events specifically for that client. Also customer service roles, that could be managing online registration, that could be managing delegate queries, all the way through to sales like we were talking about just earlier. Sponsorship is a huge area as well. A lot of events have sponsorship teams that manage the sponsorship deals and sponsorship deliverables. Then there's also, really important aspects of events like security management, creative director, virtual events planner, working on virtual and hybrid events. It could also be actually as working as a supplier to the events industry. So that could be anything from catering, design, decor, lighting, staging companies, all those individual companies that are involved in putting together an event, whether big or small. There's lots of different components and different companies involved. And then also there's new roles coming into the industry now with regards to topics such as sustainability and diversity. Some organisations now need people who have got the specific knowledge and skills, advise on those areas. So sustainable events, how to manage your event in a sustainable way, how to reduce your carbon footprint. Also diversity, how to make sure that your event is accessible to all in terms of it being a virtual event or a live event, and things like accessibility as well. So consultants who can give information on that. So there's such a big range in the events industry. And that's, why it's so important that live events comes back again, because all those sectors were affected and are still affected at the moment with the pandemic. But then, there's a whole area of teaching event management all the way through from degree to postgraduate training courses, short courses as well. That's another area where there are roles. So all events management related, but just very, very different and diverse roles out there for you.
Yeah, that is a long list. That is a long list of possibilities. And Charlie, I want to kind of post this to you as well in terms of those hidden gems. And you worked at a lot of these I would say, a couple of these different perspectives. Like, what can you share in terms of what should students really start considering when it comes to their job opportunities, whether they're event students or charity students or any other who are interested?
One thing Samantha mentioned there, which I think is often overlooked, especially it's certainly one thing I find with event students and event graduates, and it may well be the same hospitality world, is the supplier side. So we can't exist without all of our suppliers, and it's the suppliers that tend to glue the events industry together. As Samantha mentioned earlier, during lockdown, so many more of us have spoken to more of our peers, but we're not really, we're not really colleagues, we're not co-workers. The organizer of a wedding event is not likely to talk to the organizer of a fashion event or a sports event or a music event. We work in our separate spheres, and it can be, the events world can be a bit sort of silo mentality. I think we've seen a lot of that broken out during the pandemic. Lots more talking. When we all had nowhere to go to work, we all went to LinkedIn and just spoke an awful lot more. Loads of webinars, loads of chat, loads of things going on. It's the suppliers, the people that give us the radios, the PA systems, the tents. They're at all of our events, and the same thing applies to the labour as well. So that our caterers, our security, our front of house. So the supply side offers an awful lot of potential for employment, and I think it is often overlooked, and people think I've got to go straight into a hotel in hospitality. I've got to go straight to an event organizer if I've studied event management. And there are other options, there are other ways to work, and I'm currently in one of my roles. I'm working as a supplier to the film industry. It's very different. I'm used to being in the middle of the creative process as an event director, and now I'm sitting on the side, the supplier, and it is different. It's a bit strange, but also. At 7:30 when the shoot ends, I get in my car, put 6 music on, and I drive home. I don't have to think about anything else. When you're the director, when you're the organizer, you've got to think about everything. So there's some definite benefits to the supply side. You deliver a service and you go again. And then in my world that I've come from, in the sport and the mass sport side, there is so much that the skill set for people from hospitality background applies to. That whole front of house, the account handling, the client handling, the forward-facing nature. Whether it's the direct hospitality side, and there is a big hospitality side, we have thousands and thousands of people come into our events, whether it be in fixed sporting stadia, like the football stadium at the Etihad, fantastic, corporate boxes, whether it be temporary hospitality at something like the Finish of the Great North Run, where I used to build a marquee setup for 1,200 guests for a single day, on top of all the other thousands we had there. Whether you're talking something like the British Summertime series in Hyde Park, where there's an awful lot of enhanced ticket packages with concierge services and mountain hospitality. So there's a lot of crossover between the two industries. Yeah,
definitely. I think that's a great point in terms of thinking about the bigger picture. So the event itself is not just, it's not siloed per se, because obviously there are things that needs to be suppliers, or someone needs to find a way to sell the tickets, the great partnerships with the people who are mostly sponsoring those events, and lots of other things. And yeah, it's just kind of asking yourself, okay, well, what is it that you like, and finding out those little bits and pieces. And I think that's obviously the hardest part. It's like, what am I good at? What can I do? What do I like? But that's just part of the process. You have to try things, and you figure out if you like them.
It is harder right now because it's so much harder for students, graduates, people in the early part of their career to get that experience. And what we'd always say, and normally we'd be saying to people, get out there, go and do other bits and pieces. If you can't get paid work, volunteer. Yes, we've all got bills to pay, but get that experience. And when things aren't happening, you can't do that as much. So it's a case of finding other ways. How can you do it? Well, you can network, you can talk to people, you can make connections, and don't be shy to knock on doors. A lot of people have more time at the moment, and a lot of people are being quite generous with that time. So push it. The worst that anyone can say is no. If someone blanks you on LinkedIn, so what? As anyone, we have an eminent speaker here with lots of experience in sales will tell you, you've got to develop a bit of brass neck, a bit of front. So this is a good time to do it. Try that. Talk to people. If the conversation is going really badly, we'll just reach forward and close your laptop. It's fine. You can do that. It hasn't cost you anything at this stage. You're trying things out. So put yourself out there.
Yeah, I think to add, I was going to.
I think Charlie is absolutely spot on. And I think the good thing about our industry is, and you mentioned that, is that everybody is we're usually very welcoming people, right? It's the nature of our business. So if somebody reaches out, they need help, they need advice, I think we're pretty much all there, and we're like, look, I've been struggling that way. Like, we are people that like to support one another. So I think that's one of the really amazing things about our industry, is that we are all quite genuine people who are very approachable, because that comes with the job.
And it's important. Networking is just so important as well. It got you the job that you didn't even know probably you could have. And nowadays, I think, especially because we are locked at home, we can't physically network in physical space. It has actually broken the barriers, I think, a lot more. I have met people on the internet, and I haven't met people on the internet, I think, ever before. Built connections, and even just creating this panel, it gives interest to reach out, and reason to reach out to people I don't know, I haven't met before.
I'm working now on projects and for clients that I picked up through LinkedIn during the pandemic, and it just came about through talking to more people, and nothing came about as a direct pitch, but it just came about from talking to people, talking to somebody else, and someone saying, I quite like what you're doing there, I quite like the help you're offering to X, getting involved, and it just opens doors. And it's just never thinking, keep an open mind. I just think you never know where any conversation might take you, and it is a small world. Don't burn bridges, don't fall out with people, even when you detest them, because it is a small place, and it all comes back around again. And sooner or later, someone says, "Oh, you must know." And how it works.
And I think also, people ask for help a lot, and I get lots of messages, emails, DMs all the time, and I always reply if I can. Some of them are doing dissertations, and they need someone to answer that. A lot of events management students. Some of them need help about other platforms, systems that they're setting up, events, virtual events, they're setting up their own. Whatever it is, I always reply. I might not be able to have a long, ongoing conversation with them, but I do, reply. And I think it doesn't take much time to reply to someone. And at this time, people do have a bit more time. And if you can also get on Clubhouse, that's a great new platform for the events industry.
Yeah, I think I've seen most of events professionals being on that platform. A couple of other hoteliers and such, but yeah, it's up and coming one. So
yeah, definitely.
We got a question from Maria. Is the event industry for everyone? What skills are needed, or can they be learned or taught?
I would say you need to have a passion for organising events. A lot of it can be taught and learned on the job, but you really need that passion at the beginning. If you're going to go down the actual event management route, you need that passion and drive and to want to organise these events. It's not a glamorous job. It's hard work. It's lots of long hours. You need that passion first. But the skills, you can learn them. You can learn things along the way. A lot of it's on the job experience, but you need that passion to begin with, because otherwise the long hours and the unglamorous side of working long days will take its toll, and you might not enjoy it.
I think it's Forrester Research. They publish, I think, events manager is the 5th most stressful job in the world, and that's like after like firefighter and like military and stuff. So it's like, I'm not an event manager, but obviously I work with a lot of them, and also had events managers obviously in the hotel when I was working, and it can be crazy exhausting. So I think you're spot on. Like, you need to have that passion to wanting to create events. I think that's really crucial.
I think one of the best ways to find out is to try. Volunteer at an event university or at a charity or something. For me, it was like something that I applied to organize a big event for the first time in my life. And yeah, I mean, I loved it, but I clearly didn't want to pursue it as a career. Yeah, it's a 24/7 thing when it does happen.
That is good advice. It's not for everybody. There are event people, and event people tend to recognize other event people, and not just by the fact you've got an earpiece in and a high vis on, and you're out in the field. But there's a way of thinking and a way of being, and vision is an important part of it. Can you see an event when you're having your first Zoom call with a client? Can you actually start to picture the venue and what you might do to it and how it might work? You look ahead to the end product, and you're building towards that all the time. The organizational and the kind of self-management skills are an important part of it. But soft skills, the people skills, the diplomacy, the sales skills, all of those are important elements, because you're dealing with everybody from CEOs and stakeholders to venues to security guards to catering staff. You've got to be all things to all people, and you put different hats on and you have different ways, but try and make it as level and as open as possible, and then you get known as somebody who's just a good, fair, honest, reliable person. We're in the kind of events that I've spent an awful lot of time putting on, we'd always say we're a 3 a.m. Sunday morning business. So we need suppliers like that. I'm going to be out on dark streets with everybody bleary-eyed. I need people who get that, can work to it. There's plenty of people who say, "Oh, we'd love to come and do that, but not at that time, not for this price." So it's horses for courses. You can make some things fit, but where there's a natural fit and people get it, it just works better.
I think that's a brilliant topic in terms of as well. It's the soft skills, general skills that are not event specific per se, that are going to make you successful. The communications, the sales, the relationship building, and those are the skills you should have in almost every job. And I think that's an important mention. I just want to again point out, please, audience, anyone in the audience, ask your questions. If they're not, small, short, whatever questions you've got, let us know. But I want to get back to Samantha here. What's the biggest misconception that you encounter when coaching people in events careers? What do they seem to think about the industry?
So one of the things is that we did discuss that it's it's super glamorous.
Yeah.
They're going to be working with celebrities. You're going to be wined and dined. You're going to have all these lovely dinner invitations. That's one thing. Another thing is experience, which Charlie covered earlier. Really, a lot of people who are new to the industry, they're worried because they haven't got that events management experience. Last year, a large number of the event management students I know obviously didn't get to do their internships or their placements or run those live events. But there are ways to overcome that. You can volunteer, you can collaborate with others, you can put on your own virtual event right now. That's easy enough to do. Get together with some other students or other event professionals and put an event together. It doesn't need to be a really complicated event. It could be something quite simple on Zoom or on Streamline like we're using today. Other misconceptions is I think people are not sure about how to reach out to people. And again, that's something we covered. Do reach out to people. And a lot of people think, actually, I want to work for this company, but how do I get in there? Okay, you see a job advertised, great, you go through the formal procedure, you apply, but you need to do a bit more right now. You need to get yourself known to a company or individuals from that company who are senior, and we will be making those decisions about who they're going to interview. So you need to be creative right now. Just, applying on Indeed for a role is not enough. Or just, sending a CV off with a covering email is not enough. You need to do a little bit more right now to get that role in the events industry that you want. Maybe engage with them on LinkedIn, follow the senior people, actually write them a message on LinkedIn and say that you've applied for the role. Don't be too annoying, don't pester them, but do try and reach out to them because you need something that's going to make you stand out at the moment.
Mm. Yeah, I think competition is really high, and you just have to, keep pushing forward and find your way, right?
Good idea. You've got something to contribute, and you're on a social media platform. Do it. Share it. Don't feel that you can't join the conversation. As we've all been saying, people like talking about their jobs in our industry. That we're pretty open, but get involved. Don't be scared to have that view and to share it. There's some event students who are very active on platforms like LinkedIn and are out there and have picked up their own clients and are talking to people and are contributing and not thinking, oh, I'm an event student, I don't have any worth here. The fact that someone's been in the industry for more years than you doesn't mean you can't talk to them, doesn't mean that your ideas aren't valid. One of my clients now is somebody that I used to mentor when they were at the start of their period in the event industry. They've now got their own business. I'm now working as a consultant to them. So, it all moves around, and you can be young, entrepreneurial, have a great idea and have some impact. And it's easier when we can all go out there and work together in the field. It's easier for you to show that, if you're helping out someone's event, they can see that value that you add. It's a bit harder now, as Samantha said. So you've just got to work that little bit harder and find your way of getting that across. And that'll be different for different people.
Mm. How do you feel about that, Stephan? Is it similar in your line of the industry, in your side?
Yeah, very much. I think what Samantha said is very true. When you look for a job, it's usually not enough to just apply online or just apply via LinkedIn. It is good to put a message across. Maybe state your motivation. I'm not sure if cover letters these days are still really something that is much required. People really read those, but I think a simple LinkedIn message goes a long way. Gives also the opportunity for somebody to quickly have a look at your profile, right? I do think that there is, despite the pandemic, I think there's opportunities out there. There's a lot of job posts. Anybody who's interested, Cvent, we're hiring people. We're also hiring graduates, by the way. If you're based in London or in the US, reach out to LinkedIn, reach out to Cvent, go on our careers platform. You'll see that Cvent is hiring several really. We're putting a lot of effort onto virtual events also that we spoke. Is basically the best thing we have at the moment is virtual events. So there's really a lot of opportunity that comes despite the pandemic. I think it's important to remain positive about this, and I think there's opportunity even when things are not well, other things emerge out of that. We have our CEOs always says that about the events industry. He says we're forged by fire. So it's a lot of difficult things come to us, and now the pandemic, but we're forged by fire. So I think, yeah.
Well, I did a crisis management module on a diploma a few years ago, and one of the lines that came out of that was that within crisis there lies opportunity. So that's absolutely right, and that's certainly the case in the system we're in now.
I think it's fantastic, and actually to bring to a question from Elena is travel used to encourage all of these things. It used to encourage events, and it used to be an integral element of this industry. We would have to go to LA to go to certain events, or go to London or Paris, and fashion weeks and whatnot. Of course, we can't do that. So how? And speaking of virtual events that we just mentioned, how is that kind of how do you think the future is going to look like, and what's going to change in the career side of things as well? Charlie, you wanna?
Well, it's going to be a while till we're back at full capacity, and there are different plans from different people and different predictions that sit around there. But we're not all going to be back together in fields or arenas until we're all vaccinated. That's just the likelihood is. However, there's a number of things that we can do. There are some testing is working that is being seen in different places. Whether it works, it's down to kind of the public health interpretation in different countries. The Primavera concert in Barcelona, their test event that they've done recently, there were some test events in Germany about how things spread. So people are willing and open to look at things. And as we get great level of vaccination, greater level of testing that we can really rely on, we may see these kind of digital passports, and you can come in and now watch a football game, go to a wedding, do whatever. I think we're going to see events come back up, I think, this year, but they're going to be smaller numbers. We might by Q3, Q4 see some bigger events, but I think before then we'll probably get back to what we saw in the summer in the UK of 2020. Might see events for 200 or 300, and outdoor and away from urban centres are going to be easier than indoor and in urban centres. We know that outdoor is safer. So it's going to vary. So virtual is going to remain big. And the meetings industry is not my specialty, but you can see that it's a big thing for the meetings industry. But equally, they've got huge amounts of physical suppliers. If you're a set builder, with a studio, okay, you can move. I hate the word pivot, but one of my least favorite word of 2020. But you can move the nature of your business to push your studio more, but it's still only part of your business. But it is a bit of an adapt and survive for all of us. So we might have a lot more of a domestic market as well. The travel industry is going to take some time to bounce back. We've seen in the news this week that Australia have said they might not be welcoming anybody back in 2021. So it's a long road. The key thing is not to lose heart, but it is a bit of adapt and survive. Whatever you were planning to do, I think we'd all hoped it would be a little more positive than it is now. And certainly, the news doesn't make for happy reading, in the UK at the moment. So it's a case of looking ahead, really. But people will want these experiences again. Of that, confident.
I think very crucial. Sorry, did I interrupt you, Samantha? Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
So one thing that we, from Cvent side and also me personally, believe and see is hybrid events. So events that are half virtual, but also with a live attendance. And it's an interesting one, because I think initially, people are skeptic and they're like, I don't know. But the hybrid events, I think they will actually provide incredible value, because you will be able to have people attend events with the right technology, obviously, who sit in any part of the world, even though they might not be able to travel to, to London, whether it's for travel restrictions, visa restriction, or whatever, but they will be able to attend an event live, along with people who are in the room. And I think this is going to be a very crucial role for companies hosting those events. Obviously, gives a lot of opportunity, because you'll reach a much, much larger audience, and you can sort of convey that message that you want with that event, and whether it's a commercial background, you're trying to make money off an event, or whether it's just purely informative. I think everybody benefits from those virtual events. And to Charlie's point, you obviously need more suppliers. You need the technology that also again opens opportunities for other fields, for other markets, for other positions.
Definitely.
Yes, I was going to say hybrid events. I think like my clients who were not able to do events last year, that's what they're looking at now for later on this year. They work with delegates who come from quite far-flung places. So realistically, they think it's going to be quite a long time before they'll be allowed into the UK. So these are inbound events in the UK, corporate events. So with delegates coming from like the Caribbean and South America and Africa, and they think it's going to be a long time before they will get the vaccine and be allowed into the UK. So they're planning for hybrid events. There obviously is the price thing involved with all the technology involved. I was talking about this on Clubhouse the other day with someone, obviously it's a lot more expensive to set up a live event and a virtual segment as well. But I think, there is the technology out there to make these events work really well, even with the time differences, even with everything else, and to have like a unique experience for those who can come, who are based in the UK and can come because it's, it's easy travel for them, and the UK is traveling again and allowing people to move around the country. And then for those who are in far-flung places and are not allowed to leave their country or having difficulties, coming into the UK, they can attend in a virtual way. And I think that is going to be key in the corporate sector, definitely at the end of, in the second half of this year and early into next year. For those who are making those plans now, that's what they're looking at.
Yeah, I think it's important to consider that it's, of course, yes, we've been incredibly impacted by it. There's nothing going on right now, and even out of lockdown, it's probably going to be very few events, especially big ones. But there's on the other side opportunity, a different kind of event, a different kind of angle to it. And one of the examples that I like to think about is an app called Fever. I think it's Secret London owned, and they used to have these really small, like evening 2-hour events. They would organize it in a pub or like a little venue, and they just pivoted. They pivoted to online virtual events, and of course, it's not the same as sitting in a room and kind of having mystery murdery, talks and things like that. But it's still delivering that value, which is unique to them. And of course, what they're doing is many other things. They're organizing probably virtual, semi-virtual things as well. But it doesn't. There's a lot more that you can do in a way, and you can also reach a lot more people. I think that's a crucial element of it. As probably use less physical resources to create an event, so it's more sustainable in a way, and you can reach a lot more people, not only just because to grow your own business, but also to just help a lot more people access information, if it's a Cvent training or if it's just personal events and things like that. So yeah, for sure.
It's going to be interesting to see what we're left with when we come out of the pandemic in terms of these new ways of working that we've picked up. Do people like them? Do we continue with them? Do we do events in the same way? Will we change some things completely, or the events that we have been doing, will we drop them like a hot brick and go back to exactly what we did do? I think it'll be a mixture. It'll depend from sector to sector. But and Samantha has a very good point. Talking about hybrid events, and this applies to a lot of events at the moment. There are a number of events that you can do. We've seen events like the Virgin Money Unity Arena in the Northeast that had pods of up to 6 people standing in front of a big stage. A field that would normally take 30,000 had 2,500 in. So you can put events on. You can book an exhibition hall and have a hybrid event. But it's feasible in terms of practicalities, but is it feasible in terms of finance? And that's one of the hard things. It's quite difficult to make money at the moment. And lots of people are trying to spread their costs and share them and make sure that some of their suppliers and some of their freelancers and some of their crew are getting some work rather than put it all one way. But everyone's still kind of finding their feet around this. And it'll be interesting when brands come back into the marketplace and brands feel a bit braver and more confident of doing things as well. And if their money starts to come into the mix and sponsorship takes a stronger footing, then again, we might see some of these models and concepts becoming more financially viable.
I think one of the, as well, I just remembered an interesting concept that events are, designed to be in the space that you're in is, marathons, Ironman, all of these sports events that physically usually have to travel to the location to compete. An ex-colleague of mine is really into those kind of events. She was going to go travel to Canada and Germany and do all of these things last year. But what they've done instead is they've done them virtually. So she would run in kind of sort of her own backyard within a certain time frame, and she would complete the event and she still get the medal. She doesn't get as much of that whole experience, but it's still there. There's still that online community that we create.
It's a way of keeping everything going, and that's what we've got to do. We haven't, as an industry, like so many others, we haven't gone into hibernation. We're still here. We're still talking. We're still trying to do things. We're trying to get ready. We're trying to stay, event ready for when the curtain does rise again, and we can get back out there. But those communications are important, and it's important with our customers. It's important with our suppliers, and it's also important with the next generation of staff that are going to come through. We know that in the UK, the hospitality industry has a shortfall in terms of skilled workers. Well, that shortfall is going to be compounded in so many ways. Yes, there are going to be some constrictions on the number of venues that are open and the normal routes to employment, but equally there's going to be other people who want to get back and running quickly and can't find the staff. There will be staff that used to come into the UK to work that now can't do that. There will be people who leave the industry and go into something else and decide, I want something which is less susceptible to the effects of a pandemic, because, hate to mention it, but this might not be the only one we have. We could get another version of this at some point in the future. So we need to be prepared for that. So there will be opportunities created as well. Early retirement will kick in, lots of different things. So there will be space for others to come into, and we need, as an industry, to be ready for that and be prepared and help people who haven't had the normal level of experience get up and running.
Fantastic tip. Definitely to keep in mind that, we're definitely going to come back to something. Stephan, do you want to kind of, I guess this is your one tip for hospitality, or your maybe several tips in terms of what should, they're worried. Everyone's worried about the future of their careers, their industry, the hospitality, the event industry. What advice do you have for all of us worried?
Look, I have to say, this is extremely frustrating. I sometimes find myself being very annoyed with the whole thing. Been working out of like every one of us, it's been almost a year that we've been working from home, and I get frustrated at times. I think we all do. I think though, look guys, let's be positive. I think we learned something very good this summer. If you remember, the summer, the pandemic took a little bit of a dip, and during summer, life went a bit more back to normal, and some people, including myself, we traveled and we went to places. I took advantage. I've seen the most beautiful Venice because there were no tourists, and there were other people out there, and people attended small events, and there were things happening, and it gives me confidence. And I tell you why. Because it shows that everybody is yearning, really wants to go back to that normal. So we still have difficult months ahead. But I do feel that it's within us, within humans, we want to be social, we want to meet, we want to get together. And that's why I personally am not afraid that things will stay upside down and crazy. I do feel that at some point this will all come back, and people will come together again, maybe with changes. Of course, there will be certain things. Maybe there will be more distances, there will be more hand sanitizers, but I think we humans, we have a great tendency also to forget. So I wouldn't be surprised if in 2 years, we're like, COVID, no, I shake your hand, I'll hug you. Yeah, I don't need to sanitize my hands all the time. And I really do believe in that. So, sorry, the tip was be positive, put yourself out there, and be awesome.
Amazing. Yeah, well, definitely it's inspiring to know that, we're all looking forward to, there will be a future for sure. Anything to add, Samantha?
Yeah, I would say, just be visible. We spoke about it earlier, get out there, be on whichever media platform you pick, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever you pick, be visible, engage with others. If you are having a bad day and you don't want to be on social media, take some time for you, whatever it is, have a couple of days off and posting and being on social media. If you, it's quite intense, this online world. more intense sometimes than actually, working face to face with people. So if you need some time off or a week off or whatever you need, take it. It's not, this is one time in your lives where you aren't running events 9 to 12 or whatever. So take this time out if you can. If you want to go and do gardening or go for a walk or walk the dog or whatever you do, or play with your kids, go and do it. And don't feel guilty, because it's probably one of our only times now where we're not running around like busy bees as much. And I think, surround yourself with a really nice community of people in your industry that you can speak to and connect with and chat to, and because that's really important as well.
That's good. And I one thing I would just add to all of you is learn. Take an opportunity to learn, to study, whether it's taking a Cvent course, which is currently for free, or
take the Cvent certifications free of charge for everyone. Do it, even if you're new to events. You learn something. We even have one that is focused on virtual events, so that's more relevant than ever. Do that.
Yeah, do that. Take free courses that you're interested in marketing. There's a whole range of Google available courses of how that works, SEO, whatever. Anything really. There's a lot. You don't necessarily have to pay. And if you're interested in paying, there's lots of ad hoc certifications from the big names like Cornell and smaller names in local universities and so on. So definitely take the opportunity to I guess, study a little bit and certify yourself as well, because once we're back, and like you said, it is a road warrior. It is a 24/7 job. So I think you'll be overly qualified and you'll, succeed for sure.
I give you a good example. My brother, he's a pilot, and he hasn't been flying for almost a year now, which is extremely frustrating, as you can imagine. But he enrolled to university now again. He's 38. He's a little bit old, but hey, he's saying, okay, if I can't go back to flying, which I'm pretty sure he will, but hey, let me be proactive. He enrolled into university, and now he's doing another degree. So don't sit at home and be depressed, because that's really not going to help. Like, that's the worst thing that you can do.
Yeah.
That Stephan, you brought yourself straight into my point there, which is get a sideline, develop something else. Whether it's just to keep your brain going at a time, and that sideline could be pure education, but if you can monetize that, even better. And you might not think of how you can monetize it now, but keep an eye on that. The way that we all work is going to change. There's already an awful lot of freelancers in the events world. Well, there might end up being more freelancers in the hospitality world. It might change. I know there's a lot of movement around from different hotels, different cities, different venues, different parts of the business. But if we find ourselves on another normal work hiatus again in the future, be prepared for it. And is there a way of, and perhaps some of those savings that were going to be for that new car, maybe they should be just to pay the bills again, because there's an awful lot of people who've had to chew through the money that was going to go and do something else. So, the practical side is quite important as well.
Yeah.
Optimistic but realistic, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not being pessimistic to look at the bad stuff that might happen. It's called crisis planning. And if a few more governments did that, hey, world might be a better place.
Well, that is exactly.
Oh, no.
That's exactly.
Also, I know a lot of event professionals who have lost their jobs, haven't been able to get another events job, and they've gone and done other things. So they've worked for supermarket chains, they've worked for delivery companies. That's all fine, and is not going to look bad when you do apply for an events job. If if that's your circumstance and you need that income right now, go and do it. And the skills that you gain from doing those roles, so project management, maybe managing a team, managing like operations, that's all still relevant in the events industry. So I know quite a large number who've had to get part-time work elsewhere at this time, and if that's what you need, go and do it. And don't be worried or about putting it on your CV later on when you're back.
I think it also helps a lot with sort of keeping sane. Like, I think it's important for people to having a routine, to have a reason to get up, to not sit the whole day in pajamas in front of your laptop, but to actually do something. And if working in a supermarket or delivering food is something that ensures that you get up, this is how your brain stays sharp, to Charlie's point as well. And this will also help you to apply for new jobs, because if you just stay at home, well, we're all staying at home, but if you just stay and you're frustrated, and that's not going to lead anywhere.
Yeah,
it's easier to get a job when you've got a job, and it's
yes.
If you ever find in the future that there's a potential employer who looks down on you because of a job you did during the pandemic, then you don't want to work for them anyway.
True. Yeah.
I would say anyone who has anything on the CV that says 2020, 2021. You did something that's fantastic, right? And it doesn't even matter what it was, I would say, because everyone is in the same boat. So
yeah.
Sure. Amazing. Well, I think we're coming up to the 1 hour mark. So thank you. I want to thank all of you, Samantha, Stephen, Charlie, for coming along, sharing your experience and expertise. We can surely talk for a lot more longer, but to summarize, obviously, stay positive, be realistic, keep networking, do something with your time if you are not working right now. Come up with ideas, learn, hobby, or whatever. Connect with all of the panelists, myself, and anyone on the webinar right now as well. Just say hi. Just say hi and say, well, listen, I love your career story. Can you tell me more about it? And that's really all it takes. So thank you all. And that leaves us with the end of the third episode for Discover Hospitality. Next week, we're talking about travel. We're going to be here at the exact same time at WHTT's LinkedIn page on Thursday at noon GMT, but depending on where you are. And please join us then as well. So thank you all so much, and have a wonderful morning, evening, day, whatever you are.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.